I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I'd like to welcome everyone to our first meeting of 2025 for the foundation. I'd like to welcome our new members, Councilwoman Michelle Harris and Commissioner Ed Morales. Welcome, guys. We need to start off with roll call, so if we can get roll call, please. Here.
Pregnants.
Oh.
Biggs.
Here.
Morales.
Here.
Vasquez.
Vasquez. Oh, here.
Here.
Harris. Here. Rivas. Sims.
Present.
Brickner. Finance.
I'd also like to welcome our new treasurer, Jimmy Alvin. So first, we're looking for an approval of foundation minutes for September 24th.
So moved.
Second. Got a first and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Motion carried. Next up, we have the reorganization election of office. Current officers are ex-commissioner Laura Blaney as the foundation president, and I was Andy Bozak as the foundation vice president. So I will look for a motion.
I move that we appoint Andy Bozak as the foundation president.
Second.
Okay, do we have any discussion? Any other motions? Okay. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Pregnants.
Yes.
Biggs.
Yes.
Morales.
Yes.
Vasquez.
Yes.
Stone.
Yes.
Harris. Yes. Rivas.
Yes.
Sims.
Yes.
And Bozak.
Yes. Okay, thank you, guys. Next up, we have the foundation vice president.
I make a motion. I'd like to run for vice president.
Okay, we've got a motion for Redstone.
I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second for Redstone. Are there other motions?
Yes. Barb Regnitz for vice president.
Barb is VP. Okay, do we have a second on that?
I'll second it.
Second on Barb. Okay, so we've got a second by Jeremy Rivas. Are there any other motions for vice president?
Barb, if you had told me you could have, I wouldn't even offer my services.
Okay, so what do you guys suggest the best way to tackle that is? Just to go person by person and have you each pick either Barb or Red? Does everyone agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
No problems? Okay.
Well,
Miss Martin, if you could, I'm sorry?
So, Red would not.
he can vote.
Okay.
He can also recall his motion if you so choose. Otherwise, when you're called upon, you will either choose Commissioner Regnitz or Councilman.
Before we actually vote, can I just ask from a protocol perspective, do you typically have somebody in the leadership position from each board? So the president is from one board, the vice president from another board?
I think his.
Barb, I'll be honest with you. I have no problem if you want to be vice president. It makes no difference to me. I don't. Like I said, I like the foundation. I love the foundation, as do you. And I know you're passionate about the foundation. So I have, I'll withdraw.
Okay, does the second withdraw? I don't know who seconded it. Commissioner Biggs?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, that leaves one motion on the table. We have Commissioner Barb Regnitz up for VP. So if we could get roll call, please. Or any further discussion, I should ask? Let's make sure. Okay. Roll call, please.
Morales.
Yes.
Vasquez.
Yeah.
Yes.
Stone.
Yes. Say no.
Harris.
Yes.
Rivas.
Yes.
Sims.
Yes.
Bozak.
Yes.
Pregnants.
Yes.
Biggs.
Sure.
Okay, motion carries. Next, we come to new business. We've got the resolution transferring foundation earnings transfer for $8,905,274,000. So I'm looking for a motion.
I move that we approve.
Got a first? Do we have a second?
Second.
First and second. Any discussion on it? Okay, hearing none. Ms. Martin, would you like a roll call on this, I assume?
Please.
Roll call, please.
Vasquez.
Yes.
Stone.
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Rivas.
Yes.
Sims.
Yes.
Bozak.
Yes.
Regnitz.
Yes.
Biggs.
Yes.
Morales.
Yes.
Next, we have a resolution transferring foundation earnings from the foundation's holding account to the foundation budget fund for the full amount or for the amount of the full 2025 approved budgeted amount. So this is moving it from the holdings account to where we can actually spend it, correct?
So it's going from the holding to the budget.
Yeah, so yeah, use it. Okay.
I move that we approve.
Got a first?
Second.
Got a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Stone,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Rivas,
Yes.
Sims,
Yes.
Bozak,
Yes.
Regnitz,
Yes.
Yes.
Morales,
Yes. Yes.
Motion carries. Next, we are at the third amendment to the investment consulting agreement dated January 1st, 2016.
Mr. President, the only thing I'd like to ask is, it is a 3-year term, I believe.
Mhm.
Is there any reason why it's not year to year instead of 3 years?
Just for turnover purposes, but we're happy to adjust
Yeah,
however you.
I don't see it going anywhere in a year, but my problem isn't, if something happens, I want to be able to,
Oh, you can terminate at any point for any cause.
okay.
We do the 3-year just so you know that our prices are locked in and it's more stability from us.
For you guys,
But you have the ability to terminate at
at
any.
any time?
Yes.
Okay, then I have no problem with the 3.
Thank you.
And the prices are staying the same.
Yes, the
Yep.
same since the beginning. Yep.
Thank you for,
Just lock it in for 20 years.
thank you.
Any other questions? I think we need a motion, correct? We don't have,
I make a motion.
we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none,
No.
roll call, please.
Harris,
Yes.
Rivas,
Yes.
Sims,
Yes.
Bozak,
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Diggs,
Absolutely.
Morales,
Yes.
Vasquez,
Yes.
Stone.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next, we are at Katz, Sapper, and Miller Financial Statement Audit Letter and Porter County Government Charitable Non-for-Profit Foundation Incorporated Financial Statements and Independent Auditors Report for December 31st, 2023 and 2022. We're looking for a motion to accept this, correct? That what we're doing here.
So moved. Second.
Okay, we've got a motion. Any discussion? Okay, you want this roll call too, Ms. Martin?
Please,
Roll call, please.
Yes.
Sims,
Yes.
Bozak,
Yes.
Regnitz,
Yes.
Diggs,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Vasquez,
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Next, we have the Capital Cities presentation. So Amanda, you want to go ahead?
Okay. Yep. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, everyone, for the continued confidence with the contract. We really appreciate the partnership. So my name is Amanda Black. I'm the Chief Investment Officer of Capital Cities. We serve as a fiduciary advisor to the foundation. So I have a couple things to report to you today. The first, we're just going to look into the first page of that report that's pulled up on the screen. Page 1, you'll see the considerations and observations. This is the time of year when we would do an annual market review. I am going to touch on that in a second, just to give you a couple things to look at, but I'm going to have most of that be a leave behind piece for you all as a reference. I also have a short document kind of further describing the distribution that was just approved. If we need to go into that at all, I might do that just for way of reminder. And then I obviously have a quarterly performance report. Given the timing of this meeting, in that we're still in January, we do not have our full comprehensive report that we would normally give to you. The peer group data isn't all complete. The commentary that we write after we have meetings with all of your managers, we haven't had a chance to do all that post 12/31. So you'll get that full update in a couple weeks. But let's just look at the market overview. It's on it says page number 2 at the bottom. In terms of what was happening in the markets in the fourth quarter, we did see a change from what we had seen in the first 3 quarters of the year. The markets were choppy, as they call them, meaning not as positive. On the one hand, we still saw continued strong performance from those top tech stocks like the Magnificent Seven. You're going to hear me say that a couple times. But really, other styles within equities struggled and in some cases were negative. The best performing area of the stock market, accordingly, was large cap growth. But areas like small cap, value stocks, non-US, were flat or even negative. Similarly, at the bottom of the page in the fixed income markets, we saw volatility and really negative returns across the board within different areas of fixed income, aside from cash. And that was really because of just uncertainty with what the Fed might do. While we've now reached a Fed funds rate of 4.25 to 4.5%, the new administration coming in with the election naturally caused some uncertainty in the markets as far as what might happen in terms of inflation going into this calendar year, and what that might mean for Fed activity. So where we had kind of ended the third quarter thinking that there would be some rate cuts in 2025, the market is now basically pricing in none. The Federal Reserve is still suggesting that they do expect to cut rates a couple times in 2025. But anytime there isn't congruency in those kind of two schools of thought, meaning the market and the Fed, you do end up with some uncertainty, which kind of you can see that playing out in the bond market in the fourth quarter. So if we skip ahead,
A real quick question on alternatives. We're not in alternatives now, correct?
you're not.
What are you showing us there? Did that go well or did that not go well?
Well, it was different. So alternatives where like alternatives that you would view as a hedge to equity had a good quarter. So think of things like a long short fund where they're able to buy equity long, but also short equity. So then they benefit when equity doesn't do well. Those types of funds had a generally good quarter. This chart is just a blip. It doesn't go into all the detail. REITs, you can see, performed poorly. Private equity, generally, the markings aren't all in yet, but was generally poor for the year too. So it just sort of depended on the style. It's really hard to just think of alts as one single asset class. It's so many diverse areas underneath.
I have a question. How long?
Sure.
How long do you think, time-wise, that you can get a good handle on the stability of the market, where you come out to an even lane where you're going to see it's going to be more easier to track after it's like today?
When will we have stability on the market? Well, that's
Have something that you can gauge it by, because you were saying that with the new administration, things.
well. So sure. So I mean, if you look at just economic data, unemployment is at a broad unemployment in terms of narrowing it down to one number, 4.1%. That's an outstanding number. Inflation has remained somewhat sticky, but sticky at a much lower number than it had been, 2.9%, I think. So if you look at things like that and consumer confidence, you could argue that the market's in a great spot. But then you look at things like, uncertain kind of or volatile performance, uncertainty with current valuations. We saw what happened to NVIDIA this week as an example. And that's, I think the way to look at it is, as long as you can have a long-term perspective, I think we're in a great place to be invested in these markets.
So
I think we have to sort of ignore some of the noise that's happening week in and week out.
So in regards to responding to the activity of the markets, you have a set time frame by which you respond here.
So that's a great question. So the question is, do we, cap cities, respond to the markets? What we've helped you do is establish an asset allocation that matches your return objectives and your risk tolerance. We then help you go out and find underlying investment managers who are active in different areas of the market. And it's those underlying managers who are deciding, do we buy NVIDIA or do we not buy NVIDIA? So that's not cap cities reacting to the market. It's your underlying managers have the discretion to do that. And then it's our job to help you oversee that and report back to you.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so let's jump in and look at how the performance shook out for the fourth quarter. So on page 5, the foundation ended the quarter in the blue row there at 192,841,000. You did have a negative return for the quarter, negative 2.3%. Not only was that negative on an absolute basis, but it also trailed your passive benchmark. So it was a tough quarter, but I'll tell you that you are not alone in this performance. Most foundations are experiencing performance like this. Really, the key reason for the underperformance was they were your active managers. So any manager who had any level of interest rate risk inherent in their portfolio likely underperformed. So several of your fixed income managers underperformed for the quarter. Now for the year, they're still outperforming. And then especially within equity, your active equity managers generally underperformed. Um, and but I do want to remind you that you also have passive equity. So you have S&P 500 exposure. So you also benefited from that, but your active managers, were not as strong. Now, with that said, it's our job to tell you what was working and what wasn't. I do want to make sure you look at that 12-month return of 9.8%. That's higher than we would ever expect for this portfolio given your asset allocation. So you outperformed your expectations, but you underperformed your benchmark. On a 1-year basis, though, I do want to remind you that your benchmark is exactly equal to the way your managers are allocated. However, if you're comparing this to peers, by virtue of you having a US bias, you likely did better. But your benchmark doesn't, it's apples to apples, so you can't see that benefit as much. The same thing, similar to his question earlier, the lack of alternatives, especially private capital, helped you for the year. That's not to say it would help you every year. And then your active fixed income managers absolutely helped you for the year. The part of your portfolio that was really trailing the market were your active equity managers. And let me give you a little bit of data on that. So if you look at the S&P 500, it was basically 25% for the year, positive 25%. And you experienced that. You have that fund in your lineup. If you were to take that same S&P 500 and take the 500 stocks in that, and you equal weighted them, that return was 13%. Okay. One more data point for you. If you take the Magnificent 7 tech stocks, they're not all tech, but Tesla's in there. 7 stocks, the return for those stocks was 67%.
Damn.
So the performance of the equity markets was extremely concentrated in just literally a few names. And we saw that really any fund that didn't overweight those names really underperformed. And in our opinion, your funds were not overweighting them, and that was a good thing because we have those in there for diversification. Now, I know 1 month is nothing to look at in terms of timing, but I just wanted to look at your funds in terms of, did your managers perform well when the stock market dipped this week? And every single one of your active managers is outperforming the S&P 500 in January. I know that's mostly anecdotal because it's only 1 month, but I did want to see if that kind of dynamic held true. So, short story, underperformance versus your benchmark because of active equity, but outperformance versus your expectations, and a very strong absolute year of 9.8%.
Are we involved with crypto at all? Are any of our money managers trade?
No.
Just curious.
Yep. Now, that's not to say that we couldn't investigate that for you. I mean, but no.
Oh, that's
Okay.
don't put that in the paper.
Good idea.
Amanda, can you just talk to, I mean, really the quarters are very artificial. It's
Right.
the way market.
Right.
I mean, we just take a snapshot at the end of a quarter,
Right.
and
It's a big
it really,
Right.
you have to take a look at the much long. That's why we do the
Yes.
quarter average.
Yes.
Because it's just such an artificial snapshot.
That's a great point. And this foundation is meant to exist in perpetuity, but you're required to report and be transparent on a quarterly basis. So that lends itself to me sitting here and telling you, quarterly results. But if you do look out over the full time period, going back to day one of April 1st of 2016, this portfolio has earned 6.5% on an average annual basis, far outpacing the targets that were set for it, and really contributing to that very high distribution number that you were able to vote on tonight. So how are we doing? Okay. I do have one page I want to show you. It's in the other deck. If you wouldn't mind looking at the market performance deck, it's behind your tab there. If you all would stay in the book, but then please turn to the next document and then go all the way to page 9. So there's a lot of information in here. If anyone wants to read market data, this is the pages leading up to this that I skipped are all things that our team put together for you. But I really wanted to just land on page 9 and really to Commissioner Regnick's kind of point here. How should we think, and also to the question by Andy, how should we think about this portfolio when we're having so much noise in the interim? And we really feel it's important to follow the playbook. We like on the, I guess on the left side of the page here, these are all kind of categories or themes that have both positives and negatives. We're not trying to predict which way that's going to go. We're trying to make sure your portfolio has a response to that no matter what happens. So for instance, on the one hand, unemployment, inflation, consumer confidence, all of these things point to potential continued equity market momentum. But the valuations also point to a potential kind of dip if there's any sort of negative news. And we saw that this week. So in our opinion, you should continue having exposure to both passive equity and active equity. You should certainly have fixed income as a hedge, and where appropriate, consider alternatives. That doesn't mean it's appropriate for everyone. Within fixed income, we can't predict what the Fed is going to do. So we need to make sure that your portfolio has different types of fixed income that will respond no matter what interest rates are doing. And you could see some detail there. And then finally, even with the broad economy, with a changing kind of political regime, with uncertainty, with geopolitical events, we can't predict what's going to happen. And we also have to try to make sure that we keep human emotion out of this, because these are assets that we are all collective stewards over for this community. So in that case, you know, we have the investment policy statement to guide us. And there's a process behind that whereby if we ever do think something should change, we have to go through a formal process of revisiting that policy before we can even do it. So I just wanted to sort of, you know, we go through all these pieces of data, but I want to just bring you back to sort of what our job is and keeping sort of this on the right track going forward. Any questions? I know that I just wanted to, well, you know what, let's go to the next page and then I'll pause. The next page just shows Capital City's proposed fiduciary calendar for you over the next 12 months. At the next quarterly meeting, we would expect to come to you with your asset allocation study. That's where we're reevaluating whether you have the right mix between stocks and bonds, what that expected return is, how that relates to your distribution policy, and whether there are any changes needed. Following that meeting, we would do the investment policy statement review. And then after that, we would do our normal annual comprehensive fee study. But this is certainly up to any feedback from you all, or I'm happy to change any of this or if there are any comments. So
I only have one quick comment. Which
Please.
Andy did you mean? Did you mean Andy or Andrew when you said?
oh shoot. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, thank you, Amanda. And just so everybody knows, if we do have questions or whatnot, obviously get a hold of Amanda. You can email Joy or me. We can contact them if you don't have it. Okay. And next we are to the attorney's report. Anything?
I have nothing.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you,
Now we need to do approval of claims. Capital City's fourth quarter, October 1st to December 31st, $16,250. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Okay, we've got a
Second.
I'll make it second.
first and second, multiple. Roll call, please.
Olzak,
Yes.
Rugnitz,
Yes.
Biggs,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Vasquez,
Yes.
Stone,
Yes.
yes, Rivas,
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next, we've got the Cat, Sapper, and Miller invoice, the audit of financials, the year end of 12.
Motion we approve, Mr.
Second.
Got a first and second. Any discussion?
No.
Hearing none. All
Can I just ask real quick? Is something of the actual audit, Karen? Is that something that you review? Do you look at that at all?
For the recording.
this is by May in order to file our 9/9
Great, thank you.
I'm bringing that up.
Okay. Commissioners or council members, any other questions?
Yes, Mr. President, I did see we had a Porter County Foundation distribution analysis. When's our next meeting? Is that 5:30 or 5?
We didn't schedule it. We should probably discuss that Do we have it
I mean,
scheduled?
our next meeting after is at 5:30.
Oh, it's at 5.
Oh,
Yeah. Our organization's at 5.
Do you have a couple minutes?
Sure.
What
Yeah, I can fly through it.
really?
Yeah.
And
Point of order, we had
Oh, sorry.
last motion.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
oh, sorry.
Okay, back to, we have a first and second on the Kathy Sapper and Miller $5,000 fee. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call please.
Regnitz,
Yes.
Biggs,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Vasquez,
yes.
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Rivas,
Yes.
Sims,
Yes.
Brickner,
Yes.
Bozak.
Yes.
Okay, now Councilman Stone.
So, Mr. President, we have the Porter County Foundation distribution analysis, and if you have a couple minutes just to go over the key
Sure.
points of what you,
Sure.
I was
Absolutely.
this one.
Okay. So on page 2,
This has to do with
this is just by way of reminder. When this foundation was established, there were strict statutory rules that prescribed the spending or distribution policy. So at that time, the policy was up to 5% as long as earnings were positive, and that was as based on a single year-end market value figure. Through some legislation, that there was flexibility added that allowed you to take a more sort of best practices approach to your distribution policy. In June 2021, you changed your policy to distribute 3.25% of a moving 5-year average. And that is where the long-term kind of policy sits today. But at the September meeting, the board voted to adjust the spending policy for 1 year. And the change at that meeting that was approved was to change 3.25% to 5%. So I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of how that sort of impacted the figure. I already covered performance. That's on page 3, just some different performance comparisons for you. But on page 4, you can see the math. So what we do is we look at the past 20 quarters of market values. We take an average of that number, and that's what that $178 million is. Then when you take the 5% distribution percentage by that, that's how we got the 8.9 million. Had you kept the 3.25% number, that number would have been that 5.8 million. And then I also wanted to show you in italics there, even with the dip in the fourth quarter, the slight negative performance, I did want you to see that your average rolling market value still increased by almost $5 million over the course of the calendar year. That's really extensive growth for a rolling number.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So we're taking out an additional 1.75% than we normally would, correct?
Yes.
And at what point in time is the 20 quarter average going to catch up? Because it won't at the first year. It's because it's an unusual amount. It's just coming out, but it's still going to be buoyed by those past quarters. So do you have an estimate as to when that might catch up, so that we're actually taking? Because then when we take out the 3.25% next year, it's going to be on a slightly number.
Right. You're right. Well, but you would have distributed this much, so it will be on a lesser number. Your market value will decrease by a higher amount than it normally would. So I'm afraid I can't speak off the cuff on that because there's
Right.
things working there.
Yeah.
So the good news on this, I know we're short on time. What we already have scheduled for you next quarter is to do an analysis of what your portfolio ought to return in a normal time period and what inflation ought to be. And with that, we should be able to help you more formally decide is 3.25% the right number. And we can run some other figures for you that in the meantime. Does that sound okay?
Mhm.
So historically, page 5, if you just want to have a quick snapshot of not only the actual policy word for word, but also the statutory code that corresponds to this, as well as what the distributions have been each year since inception. That's on page 5.
All right. Any other questions for her? We appreciate your time today.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
Looking at the distributions, I might be wrong, just looking at the 2020, I know we didn't have $173 million. Did we take out 5% prior to
That's before smoothing, I believe.
Smoothing and
Yep,
and that's
it was,
what-
yeah.
okay.
And it was a
That's before
single number.
for every time.
So you never knew what that 1231 number was going to
Exactly.
be.
Yeah, but sometimes it was really good.
Right, that's,
Yeah,
that's
that's what I was looking at.
that was it.
2020 wasn't bad.
Right. That's exactly right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Any other questions from us?
Um,
Comment? Public?
can I ask you,
Absolutely.
I know we met with, Kyle
The
Keebler.
airport? Mhm.
Are we still planning to have them?
We will, but they're working right now with capital cities to come up with a presentation for us. I don't know where you guys are at. It was the airport that was potentially wanting to borrow money from the foundation. We told them at the time to get with you guys to make sure that they're presenting numbers that we can hear from you. I mean, you guys are our financial brothers and sisters looking out for us. We want to know that you guys understand what's going to happen and it makes sense. So, as far as I know, Commissioner Regnitz, that we're still waiting on Kyle and to finish that discussion, and then Kyle's going to reapproach us to ask to be on the agenda. So maybe next agenda because we only meet, quarterly.
We only, and that's my question, Mr. President, was this board, would they feel comfortable giving another 15 minutes, doing 45 minutes instead of a half hour? Because
When we had
last year,
information,
like we were always running over. We didn't get enough information. Like there was a question I want to ask about the.
and we can always do it before our meeting,
Running over.
4:30, Commissioner or Councilman Stone, because we don't normally meet till 5:30, so that would give us an hour, right?
Right.
So yeah, let's discuss that. Let's send out the meeting date to all the council and commissioners and see what works, and we'll just post it from there.
All right.
Andy, my thought is the board when it considers, because we're really we're going to seriously consider this request, charting ground we've never been in.
Right.
Maybe a special meeting. That's all we're looking.
Another day type of thing, yeah, because it might be a long meeting. That might make sense.
Yeah.
Let's get the information from Kyle and see when they want to present, and then I agree with you, and I don't see that being a big problem, unless someone else just want to attend.
The more the merrier.
Yeah.
Well,
Was there anything else from us? Anything from the public? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Second, someone. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Have a good night.